It's funny because I was going to mention this as an example of the power of the Starbucks brand. You drink water.
Yeah, Starbucks has good water. Maybe this is their new path to rebounding. It tastes fresh and clean. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the container or just some placebo effect. But, they've talked about energy drinks and new food, but maybe it's water.
Welcome to GeekWire. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop.
And I'm GeekWire editor Taylor Soper.
All right, we are back with another special midweek episode, another CEO transition. This time it's Starbucks. The company today announced that Brian Niccol, the CEO of Chipotle, will be its new CEO, succeeding Lakshman Narasimhan. It was a very short tenure. He started officially in March of 2023, so a little bit more than a year in the role of CEO. And Taylor, I've always considered Starbucks to be another Seattle tech giant in many ways. Its digital strategy, its mobile order and payments are at the heart of the company in many ways, and really at the heart of this announcement today of the new CEO. You cover this company. I've covered this company quite a bit. Were you surprised, first off, to hear that Starbucks had made this transition?
Definitely the name surprised me. We knew that Starbucks sales are slumping, a lot of activist investor activity. Howard Schultz clearly, by way of his LinkedIn posts, was not happy. But I think seeing the Chipotle CEO's name as the new Starbucks CEO was definitely a surprise. Wall Street seemed to love this decision. Starbucks stock, which has been hurting over the past several months, was up more than 20%. And Chipotle stock was down more than 9%. So clearly, Brian Niccol is a respected CEO. He's been in fast food. He knows the game. Can he fix Starbucks? That's the question that remains.
And we're going to dive into that a little bit on this episode. But I want to set the stage first. I saw Lakshman speak, the outgoing CEO now, at a Seattle Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce event last September. I got to say, it was a fascinating experience because I was really impressed by his eloquence. And I don't have a good recording of it, but just to give you a sense for it, he was asked about what he learned from the 6-month immersion program that he did that preceded him officially taking over as CEO. I mean, he was like in the field working as a barista, Starbucks, and he really took this transition seriously. And his quote was, "It was designed with a couple of ideas in mind. It was supposed to communicate to me the heart of a partner, the eyes of a merchant, the craft of a barista, the hands of a farmer, the dreams of an entrepreneur, the grit of an operator, and the obsession and urgency of an owner." And I was there catching this on my recorder, walking around taking photos, and I was like, I've never heard a CEO this eloquent in an extemporaneous Q&A off the cuff, speaking as if he's writing into prose in a literary class. And then I got close to take the picture and I realized he was reading off of note cards. And so I bring this up now because it strikes me as we consider his tenure, his brief tenure, and look ahead to what's next for Starbucks. He came out of consumer packaged goods. The company that he ran previously oversaw such brands as Lysol and Durex. I think this was not native to him. He had to read off of note cards. Whereas the new CEO, Brian Niccol, he is coming from an industry where it's much more directly transferable to Starbucks. Now, I don't think that necessarily means that the Chipotle strategy specifically will be what Starbucks does, but this is somebody who has been immersed in restaurants and food and digital apps for mobile order and pickup. He effectively led that turnaround for Chipotle, and here he is now as the new CEO of Starbucks.
I mean, if you're going to pick one CEO from the food restaurant landscape, Brian Niccol is probably your guy to help lead Starbucks at this moment. You could argue that maybe he should have been the selection before Starbucks ultimately went with Lakshman. But when Niccol took over Chipotle in March 2018, their market capitalization was around $9 billion. Today, over $76 billion in 6 years. So clearly he was doing something right there. If if you look at the resume of Brian Niccol, it wasn't just Chipotle, right? He was at Taco Bell, and he helped do a lot of the same things that he ended up doing at Chipotle, between digital transformation, really catering to Gen Z, that youthful brand, those funny viral moments that came out of Taco Bell's social media accounts. He was there leading it, and he was also at Pizza Hut before that. So to your point, Todd, I mean, he has had so much experience in the Starbucks, Taco Bell, restaurant, fast casual world. And so he knows what to do, but Starbucks is such a unique beast. And there was a quote we had in our story today from an analyst at William Blair, basically saying, sure, he's done it at Chipotle, but the challenges at Starbucks are unique, between the boycott pressures, perceived value questions, and they've been having issues with speed of service too, which is directly connected to their mobile order and pay system. So really unique hurdles he'll face here, but he's certainly had experience at not just Chipotle, but Pizza Hut and Taco Bell.
I was listening to an interview that he did with Yahoo Finance, where he explained how Chipotle approached this digital transformation.
Give us your big pie in the sky view on the future of the restaurant. What is the Chipotle of the future look like? Is it smaller? Does it even have seats inside of it?
Yeah, look, I think there's still going to be a place for Chipotle dining rooms. I just think you're going to see, in our case, a new mix in our portfolio, right? We've now got access points with Chipotle where you can order ahead, get it through our pickup window, not even having to get out of your car. You've got the order ahead business where you can, order ahead, run in, grab your food and go. You've got the business where you obviously come into the restaurant, go through the line, grab your food and go. And I think with those different types of access points, it allows us now to execute different restaurant formats. But I think there's a place and a time for each one of those formats. So I think you're going to see Chipotle of the future where we just have a much greater blend of access points. So you'll see some Chipotle full restaurants where I got all those access points I just described, all the way to maybe a Chipotle only restaurant. And what that provides for us is the access to trade areas that before maybe we said, we can't go into that trade area. Now we think we can.
So effectively what they did was they created multiple channels. They have this fast lane for mobile order and pickup.
Yeah, the Chipotle lane, this is the special lane they built specifically for mobile digital orders. So if you've purchased on your phone or on your desktop, bought a couple burritos, a burrito bowl, you drive up to Chipotle, you go into the Chipotle lane versus parking your car, going inside the traditional store. I mean, their digital sales continue to grow, and it's really interesting looking at the strategy there, and you compare it to what Starbucks is going through and some of Howard Schultz's comments about how they are doing mobile orders and where the customers are going, how it's changing Starbucks.
So this is interesting because if you think about the Starbucks experience itself, and this is Howard Schultz's big point, is that the notion of the third place, this special other place where you go to create community and to connect with others, the people in the green aprons, as he says, the cloth of the company, interact with you, remember your name, remember that you have a dog. That can really be lost in this other world where you're interacting through a mobile app. And my thought here is that there's really no way to truly recreate that kind of connection through the mobile app. And it seems like Starbucks just needs to say, okay, let's put these people over here. That is a growth driver of our business. You've got a stat in the story. How much of their sales in the past quarter were related to mobile order and pay or digital orders?
31%, so almost a third.
Yes. I mean, that's huge. I remember when they first rolled this out, and of course it was accelerated by the pandemic, but that's a huge chunk of your business. You can't give that up. You want to grow it. But when I hear Brian Niccol describe what they did at Chipotle, you can kind of fast forward and imagine how he might apply that approach to Starbucks. And I could see it almost being like the roastery experience, this big Willy Wonka experience in just these few selected urban areas, being translated into more specialty Starbucks stores to create more of a destination. At the same time, you have, of course, mobile-only stores, pickup stores, but preserving that soul of the brand, as Howard Schultz would say, in not every Starbucks, but in destination Starbucks, and really segmenting it that way. That's what I'm taking away from all of this.
Have you been going to Starbucks recently, or do you prefer independent coffee shops or different ways to get your coffee?
I go to a mix. I do go to the Starbucks. It's a very nice Starbucks at Market Street in Ballard, the nice one there at the bottom of the historic building in my neighborhood in Seattle. And I enjoy it. It can be a confusing place. Just the last time I was there, people were lining up in the wrong place, and the baristas had to tell them to go around the other side. And I got the sense, based on the way the barista was expressing it, that it might happen a lot. And so you can see where these configurations, the way the stores are set up, might not be native to the mobile ordering experience, and that the mobile orders might be getting in the way. And I know this has happened a lot, are getting in the way of the customers who really want to be there for the Starbucks experience, the authentic Starbucks experience, which comes from these classic cafes in Italy. I mean, that was the original inspiration that caused former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz to basically reinvent the company. He wasn't the original founder, but he's the spiritual founder of its current incarnation. And he was inspired by those coffee houses in Italy. And that's, I think, what they could get back to in a selected segment if they separate out the impact of the mobile ordering.
I think you hit it on the head with the question of how do you segment, because you can't just say, we're going to ditch digital, we're going to go back to old school Starbucks third place strategy. You have to cater to what is a third of your business. And can you mix it together? Can it blend well in the same place? And it seems like they've had just a ton of trouble with that, not just from the consumer when they walk into the store, but from the baristas, right? When they're getting digital orders or they're getting in-person orders, how do you balance those two? And Chipotle seemed to have some innovation there where they created a separate station essentially for digital orders with its own screens, its own kitchen area. Like, this area is for digital and this area is for in-person, and being able to do both at the same time. So I really love your point on the roastery, though, because the roastery here in Seattle up on Capitol Hill is really a tourist destination. And when folks come in from out of town, it's like, hey, let's go to that Starbucks roastery, even more so than the original Starbucks down at Pike Place, which is kind of a tourist attraction, but it's just a normal Starbucks, if you will. But that place up on Capitol Hill, it's pretty amazing. And to your point of the brand, like that brand is something that Starbucks is so valuable for them. I think it's been slipping a little bit. So can they still offer that experience for customers, that special coffee, that special food, but also cater to people who want to push a couple buttons and get their coffee?
Yeah, it's a different customer segment. And I think that'll be one of the challenges that Brian Niccol faces. Of course, another one is unions, which is a whole other issue. And I think it goes against the ethos of the way that Howard Schultz ran it. The reason they call Starbucks employees partners is because they literally do get stock options in the company. I've always kind of made fun of it in the back of my mind, like, come on, they're employees. But that is the ethos. They want them to be true owners of the company. And we will be right back.
I wanted a career in IT, but I didn't know where to start. WGU makes it simple. Their accredited online degree programs cover all kinds of IT specialties, and they have valuable industry certifications built in at no extra cost. The payoff? Having those certs back up my degree makes me look even better to future employers. A nonprofit university that includes top industry certs in their programs? I choose WGU. Learn more at wgu.edu/IT certs included.
I was really struck, and I don't mean to be fixating on Howard Schultz, but it's hard to talk about this story without talking about Howard Schultz. And he's a lightning rod in Seattle. I think a lot of folks on sports radio would just be sitting here railing about Oklahoma City and the Sonics at this point. And I think obviously that's not our topic, although, gosh, here's
we can go
the
there.
Sonics do come back. All right, no, let's not do it. But to me, it's interesting. He's no longer on the board. He is obviously a major shareholder. And when he did that LinkedIn post that you mentioned a few months back, I was really taken aback by that post. And he's defended it by saying, hey, he just wants to speak the truth. He feels it's important for the Starbucks leadership to know how he's thinking. But my thought on that has always been, you can pick up the phone. You can talk to somebody privately and personally and offer them your support. And I don't know. I hope for Brian Niccol's sake that Howard Schultz himself reassesses how he interacts with the leadership of this company in a public way. He did a huge interview with Acquired. And actually, I just got done listening to that. This is the Ben Gilbert and David Rosenthal podcast that we talk about a lot on the show, where he went into the deep history of Starbucks after he left as CEO. It was just recently, this past season for them. And this, in his mind, I can tell it is still very much his company. It's very personal to him. And I think that's frankly one of the biggest risks that Brian Niccol and the Starbucks leadership team are going to face, is trying to keep Howard Schultz at bay. We should say that Howard Schultz was quoted in the Starbucks press release this morning, voicing his support for Brian Niccol. He said, quote, "I believe he is the leader Starbucks needs at a pivotal moment in its history. He has my respect and full support."
Yeah, the LinkedIn post, it was weird, not to use a term of the political climate right now, but he said, quote, "Through it all, focus on being experiential, not transactional. The answer does not lie in data, but in the stores," end quote. Which, back to our earlier discussion point of this balance of technology and data and good old-fashioned customer service in the store, and what you're hitting at with how do you segment those and how do you separate those or bring them together. Howard Schultz's post seemed to say, hey, let's get back to our roots. Let's serve the customer with a smile. Let's ask them how they're doing. But how do you do that while catering to the Gen Z digital customer, right? It's a big challenge.
Yeah, Starbucks has gone down some weird side lanes in recent years. I tested the Starbucks Odyssey mobile app, the NFT experience where you were able to get virtual currency, and that's since been discontinued. There's also been some strange stuff, frankly, dating back to Howard Schultz in terms of the coffee and beverage choices that they've been making as well.
Yeah, wasn't there the olive oil coffee experience? Did you ever try that?
I did.
And?
It was, obviously, it's not the next great thing in coffee. It was interesting. That's where sometimes I listen to Howard Schultz. I mean, he described this epiphany he had when he tried the coffee with olive oil in it. I'm like, God, what are you actually drinking? Because I think something's off there. I mean, it was fine. It was like, smoother coffee. I have not made it my normal drink. I will say honey citrus mint. That's my go-to Starbucks tea. So much like your water, Taylor, I do go for a non-caffeinated Starbucks beverage when I can. I also get coffee. And yeah, I'm a regular at Starbucks. And actually, I'm kind of bummed my Starbucks drive-through in my neighborhood has been shut for a while they revamp it. And it's impacted my routines for sure.
The Starbucks down by my neighborhood also recently closed down as well. And most disappointed is my dog, Ichi. No more pup cups. So,
what are pup cups?
You don't know pup cups?
No, I don't have a dog.
They're small, the tiniest cup that Starbucks has. They fill a bunch of whipped cream in there and they give it to your dog.
Whipped cream? Can dogs have whipped cream?
Mine can. Yeah, that's a good treat.
Right.
So maybe so just to bring it back, I think it's venti waters and tiny pup cups. Brian Niccol, this is what you got to do.
All right. With that, I think we've officially exhausted all of our hot take topics on this particular issue. Although I will say, Taylor, props to you for the phrase of the day, burrito behemoth, in your story.
That one was not bad. Hey, I was actually about to go use Claude or GPT to help me out on some fun phrases, and that one came to me naturally. So that was all natural,
Nice.
Human-powered.
It was not quite as good as the headline on the graphic in the Wall Street Journal, which was Taco Tuesday.
Oh, that's hard to beat.
All right. Hey, thanks for tuning in, everybody, for this special edition of the GeekWire podcast. We should note, by the way, we have requested an interview with Brian Niccol. And of course, if that happens, we will bring it to you. And he starts in early September, so perhaps it might have to wait until after then. But thanks for your reporting on this, Taylor.
Good chatting with you.
Until next time, I'm Todd Bishop.
And I'm Taylor Soper.
We'll be back soon with a new episode of the GeekWire Podcast.